Now, this lesson is going to be all about something that you may have heard editors talk about in interviews, or you may have even seen in an editor's timeline, and it's called a line string out or a line breakdown. We're going to go ahead and create one for this scene here so you can actually see what that's all about and how it might actually be useful to you in your workflow. So I'm going to come over to my bin here with my cuts. I'm going to open up my Scene 8 line breakdown. And this is what my timeline currently looks like. Now, for the line breakdown, I don't need any additional video tracks or additional audio tracks. I just need what's there. So in this case, it's 1 piece of video and 4 pieces of audio. Now, what is a line breakdown or a line string out? Well, let me go ahead and show you what this actually looks like. Let's pull up our script and take a look at what happens in the scene. At the top of the script, we have an exterior scene where Tom walks up to the house, jumps onto the porch, and enters the patio door. This would be the first action that we want to break down. We had a handful of shots that we assigned an orange color to that showed this action, and so we want to put all of those shots and takes together in a group at the start of our timeline. And it's all of 8F, take 1, take 2, and take 3, and all of 8G, take 1, and take 2, because this is all the same action of him running up to the house. Let me just play through this for a second here. That's pretty cool, but it's actually a lot cooler when we get further into the scene. So let me show you now the next sequence here. This is all inside of the house, and you can see that the beginning of every shot of this scene involves Tom entering through the door and sitting down, just like this. Great, so that was 2 shots back to back. And if we were to watch this entire thing here, we would see every action of him entering through the door and sitting down played back to back to back. This is actually incredibly helpful to see subtle differences between the different takes that you filmed on set. For example, I can tell you right away by looking at this that the first take is a little bit smoother, the camera is a little bit nicer, but immediately I noticed on this second take here that we just watched that the camera drifts a little bit behind his action and doesn't follow him down to the chair perfectly. So I might say this take isn't very good. And I might continue watching to decide which one of these takes is the best. Now, it's not just for this shot only. It's for every time this action occurs in all of the different shots. For example, as I move through my shots here, eventually I'm going to come to the wider angle, or shot 8B. And we can play this out now and see what 8B looks like in order. And we can make him sit down and stand up all day long, but essentially what's happening here is we're looking at every time in shot 8B that he goes from the beginning of the shot to the moment that he sits down before the first line of dialogue. And this is pretty cool because you can see that in shot 8A, the camera team intended that he walks in through the door and walks all the way up to the chair and then sits down. But while filming shot 8B, it was decided that he didn't need to do all of that, and that instead, the edit might begin right here, either in the middle of sitting or after he's already sat down, without needing to see him walk through the door and walk all the way up to the chair again. We do the same thing on the other coverage as well. Using this character, we're going to see all the moments where he looks up at Tom as Tom sits down. Three, two, one, action. And we can also see here in this handheld shot that it was intended that this shot runs the entire length of Tom walking in and sitting down. If we go to the last take here. Zach, action.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room.
Let's cut that. Very nice. Now you can hear some of the dad's dialogue creeping in here, and that's okay. It was not intended that that dialogue be in this shot, and it was a mistake that we made while on production. The important thing is that we wanted to see Tom walk up to the chair so that we had all the different coverage and different angles available to us of him making that action. Now, the next chunk of breakdowns here in our line breakdown is going to be all of the first couple of lines of dialogue. When you make a line breakdown, it's important to group important lines together instead of just having every single individual line in its own group. So let me just play through this a little bit so you get an idea of what that actually looks like.
I left a suitcase for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
I don't understand why they won't let Myra come. It doesn't make any sense.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra. It doesn't make any sense.
Aside from accomplishing the goal of getting those lines totally stuck in your head, what this actually shows you here is the different performances available to you as the editor, and it helps you gauge at what point did the actor give just the right performance for that given moment. Seeing it all back to back can be incredibly helpful because it gives you a big overview of what was happening in this actor's performance throughout the course of all the different shots, just for this one important moment in the scene. And we're going to do the same thing by looking at all of these shots of the dad's coverage. So we're going to see the dad's first line, and then see his reaction to Tom's first line.
I left a suitcase for you out in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
I left a suitcase for you out in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they can't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
Now, right away, this is really good to look at because I can see that there is a very big difference between his performance here in the first take and his performance here in the second take. By playing them back to back like this, I can see that he's changed to a little more of a stern tone in the second take. And I'll bet if we went a little bit further into the takes, we might see that his performance changes even a little bit more into a more stern tone, as that seems to be the direction the filmmakers are heading in molding this actor's performance for the scene. Let's check out one of these later takes.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they can't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
And that's really good to look at as well, because we can see that he gives an incredible performance right here, but this is not a great visual take, as the other actor blocks him earlier on. So this might not be usable for our purposes. Creating a line breakdown like this is a very fast and efficient way to look through the different takes that you have and decide which one might be the best fit when building your actual scene. Now we're going to go ahead and look at our timeline here and create the remainder of the line breakdown so that you can see how it's actually done. So what I have in the back of my timeline here are what's left of all of the shots in the scene that have not been turned into different line groupings. So we're going to go through and decide where the next break should be for a line grouping and then create that group together. You'll see how this comes together in a second, but first I want to take a brief step backwards and talk about how to get your timeline prepped to create a line breakdown. First, sort your bins by name. This works differently across different software, but the general idea is to sort the clip names alphabetically. This should respect the order of scene and shot, starting with the first shot in the scene, and descending to the last shot of the scene. Grab all of the clips from your bin and drop them into your timeline together so that the clip at the top of the bin is the first clip on the timeline, and the clip at the bottom of the bin is the last clip on your timeline. So I'm going to hop in here and watch this first take and see where I think the next break should be for my line group.
I love that horse as much as you do, but Myra is just a horse.
I'm not going if we can't bring her with us.
Tom?
I think stopping after he shouts Tom might be a good place to break up the lines, because we have one of the dad's line and one of Tom's lines before the dad interrupts him, because that's a natural stopping point in the emotion of that moment. So I'm going to make a cut right here, and I'm going to move on to my next shot and take.
I love that horse as much as you do, but Myra is just a horse.
I'm not going if she can't come with us. She's part
Tom!
of the family.
And we'll make another cut right here, and we'll do that for all of my different shots.
I love that horse as much as you do, but Myra is just a horse.
I'm not going if we can't bring her. She's part
Tom!
of the family.
Now, if you have really good audio recordings, you can actually see on the waveforms where some of these groupings actually get broken up. For example, right here, the dad says Tom. Now, to make this a little bit easier to see, I'm going to make these larger for us. Something kind of like this. And I can see that this is the dad's microphone, and he's shouting Tom right here. So instead of watching through the beginning of every single shot, I might just use the waveforms to guide where I need to make the cuts on each shot. Let's try the next one together. So right here should be the dad shouting Tom. And we'll move on to the next one here. And I can see very similar patterns in the waveforms. And this right here is the dad shouting Tom. And we'll keep going. And I can do this very quickly now for all of the different shots. Great. Now that I've gone ahead and make cuts at all of the different shots in my scene where I need to break up the grouping, I now need to move those cuts to one spot. So I'm going to come over here, and depending on your software, you might make an in and out point, and then cut and paste what you just selected to a new blank space on your timeline. I'll do a couple together with you. So we'll do a cut and a paste. Come over to this one here. We'll do a cut and a paste. Now you can go ahead and put the rest of these together in a group on your own. Now, after you finish doing that on your end, it should look something kind of like this. And you can see that we've grabbed these lines from both Tom's camera angle and the dad's camera angle, just like we saw in our first group from earlier. Since we've color-coded our footage, we can also see that we have blue clips back to back and then yellow clips back to back. It may also help to consult the script as you go through this process. You can break down your script where you think the most important emotional breaks are in the scene and use that information to guide your line breakdown. You can take a look at my copy of the script by downloading it at the link below this video. Now we're going to play back this section so you can see how that sounds similar to our other groups.
I love that horse as much as you do, but Myra is just a horse.
I'm not going if we can't bring her with us.
Tom, I love that horse as much as you do, but Myra is just a horse.
I'm not going if she can't come with us. She's part
Tom!
of the family.
I love that horse as much as you do, but Myra is just a horse.
I'm not going if we can't bring her. She's part
Tom!
of the family.
Again, it's very cool to see how things progress during a production schedule, because as you can see, as the more the takes went on, the overlap between the actors became a little bit more realistic, and it felt like their conversation was actually happening there in the room. So the remainder of the shots here are all a big monologue from Tom's father, and so it might be good to keep them all in their own group together. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove the blank spaces between the rest of these clips to make my last line breakdown. And just like that, I have here a complete line breakdown for scene 8, which we can then use to actually edit our scene together. Let's walk through what's on our timeline now against what we see in the script. In this first group, we have all of the shots of the exterior as Tom jumps up on the porch and approaches the patio. In our second group, we've put together all of the shots of Tom's long walk across the room as he sits down and his dad's reaction to him entering. In our third group, we've cut all the lines from here to here on the script. This includes both Tom's coverage and his dad's coverage. In our fourth group, we're cutting together all the lines from here to here in the script, and this also includes all of Tom's coverage and all of his dad's coverage. Finally, the last group contains the dad's final monologue from right here in the script, along with all of Tom's reaction shots to what's being said. It's also really great to have this in case we have to revise the scene later on, especially if the director or a producer is in the room and they want to see all of the different takes of a given moment really quickly. This lesson is going to have some homework. First, using the footage from scene 8, cut together a line breakdown. If you are up for an organizational challenge, also try to create a line breakdown using the footage from scene 6. In this case, we might refer to this as an action breakdown instead of a line breakdown, as scene 6 does not contain any dialogue. Coming up in the next lesson, we're going to be building the kitchen table conversation on our timeline, part 1.